So let's talk about water parks. "20 times. No fucking lie, 20 times I've done this." So if you didn't know, which honestly wouldn't surprise me because despite everything, I would still consider Waterparks a small band, which really is bonkers considering their history and everything. I most likely will make a history of Waterparks video at some point, but I digress. Waterparks is a band from Houston, Texas. It consists of lead singer Austin Knight, guitarist Jeff Wingington, and drummer Otto Wood, also known as the prettiest boys in the world. I mean, like, just look at them. And this is the story of how Waterparks gave me my happiness back. Okay, whoa, broad statement, kinda confusing. Let's break that down, shall we? So Waterparks first appeared on my radar in 2017. Now, while 2017 didn't quite make the list of worst year of my life, quite like 2016 and 2018 did, which I talk about in my 21 Pilots video, which I highly suggest you watch, that doesn't mean that it was not a horrible year, because it 100% was. It was a year of just endless misery. I'm talking, I woke up miserable and I went to bed miserable. And something that I liked to do to try to break up the monotony of all that misery was watch YouTube videos. And one person's videos always managed to shine just a little bit of light on the abysmal void that was my existence, and that is Call from Call is Cool. She is a gem of a human being, and everyone needs to go subscribe to her and give her attention because she is fantastic. So I binged a bunch of Call's videos, and one of them was her vinyl collection video. And in that video, she showed off 2 records by this band that I had never heard of before, Waterparks. She then proceeded to tell us that this band was probably her second favorite band of all time, which, if you know how hard this girl goes for her favorite band of all time, 5 Seconds of Summer, that is not a light statement. So needless to say, this piqued my interest. I'm like, who the heck are these people that I have never heard of before? Like, I need to check them out. Now, when I say check them out, all that meant was I typed them into iTunes and I listened to the little like 30-second sampler of whatever their most popular song at the time was, which was probably Stupid for You. Listen to that little 30-second sampler, and then that was it. Like, that was my relationship with this band up until September of 2018. And now comes the hard part. The part where I explain how we got to where I was in September of 2018, and really 2018 as a whole, if I'm being super honest, really like the past 5 years of my life. And even 20 times later, this is not any easier to do. It's not any less hard. But here we are. We're gonna do it. Okay. I was in an emotionally abusive, manipulative, and toxic relationship for 7 years. It started when I was 16 and ended when I was 23. And I'm not pointing out these years to you because I believe that you can't do simple math. I simply think that it is important to highlight this specific set of years. I will explain why later. So yes, I was in this situation, and even now, it is not an easy thing to admit to. I probably never would have admitted it or even fully realized that it had happened if I had not gone to see a therapist. And I didn't even go to see a therapist for this. I thought I was just going to see my therapist about my routine school anxiety, but that's not what happened. My constant state of misery was not stemming from school anxiety. It was stemming from the fallout of this relationship. And I fought this so hard because I have always been the person to believe that I am a strong, independent woman who doesn't take shit from anyone. So having to sit there and have an actual professional tell me something that completely contradicts that was such a hard pill to swallow. But I did, and then the next step in the process of healing from this kind of thing was to confide it in the people closest to me. So I told my 3 closest friends of almost 10 years, and I cannot stress the close part enough. Like, if you would ask me to bet my life that these people were gonna be in my wedding party, we're gonna be at the hospital when my kids were born, we're gonna be sitting next to me in the retirement home, we were all gonna be buried in the same cemetery on the same hill, I would have done it in a heartbeat. I would have bet my life that that's how our entire lives were gonna play out. We were so close. But in the end, essentially, they chose him over me. It was a year of me tearing myself open, me leaving all of my pain and my trauma and my vulnerability out open for them to gawk at and pick apart, and them saying back, this isn't enough. This isn't enough to make us care. And I did this over and over and over, all through 2017. And it made me miserable to be constantly met with invalidation and gaslighting and being made to feel guilty. It was pushing me over the edge. It was literally rotting me from the inside out. And finally, they pushed me to a point where I started to realize that if I kept going, there was going to be no turning back from this. Pushed me to the point where I started thinking, I wish he had beat the shit out of me. Or I wish he had raped me, because maybe then they would care. Maybe that would make them care enough about me to stop hurting me. And that's when I knew that I had to cut them loose. Nothing and no one is worth thinking things like that. Like, nothing and no one. So I did in January of 2018 in a catastrophic blowout. I let them go, and they were blaming me all the way to the end. So this was the part where I thought that it was over. I had cut all the rotting parts of me off and I could start fresh. But that's not the way that trauma works. Because despite how terrible these people were, I still loved them. They were my closest friends for almost 10 years. We did everything together, and now all of that was gone. Everything that I had just spent 10 years building with them was just completely gone. And I kept wondering, did I do the right thing? And it's common in any kind of abuse case to doubt the validity of it. Is this really abuse? Was it that bad? Will other people have it so much worse, so should I just suck it up and just deal with it? All of that. So then when you have the people that are supposed to be closest to you, the people who are supposed to love and support you, throwing even more doubt on top of all of that, it is absolutely unbearable. And I had to accept that I had chosen these people. I had chosen my abuser. Like, I loved him more than anything for 7 years. And he was just a god-awfully terrible person. And I had chosen these friends, would have laid down my life for any one of them. And look what kind of people they turned out to be. How could I ever trust anyone again? How could I ever trust my own judgment of other people again? And that was the final part. Tearing myself apart. I had to reconcile that I was a person that let this happen. I let someone abuse and manipulate me for 7 years. And then I let people gaslight me and shame me and make me feel terrible about myself because of that abuse for a whole year on top of that, which made me doubt everything that I had ever believed about myself. And it made me viciously hate myself. Like, why didn't I see this sooner? Why didn't I see the signs? I must be so stupid and so weak and just so not worth anyone's time or effort. I'm not worth people taking my side. I can see why they chose him. It was probably my lowest point of my entire life. I didn't want to deal with all of this. It was just too hard. It was too painful. And I knew that if I just killed myself, I wouldn't have to go through any of it. It would all just be over. And that's what I wanted. More than anything, I just wanted it to be over. And usually, when I find myself in places like this, I turn to things that I love as a distraction. But this is where that highlight of important years thing comes in. If we're being honest, those were my formative years. And when you spend your formative years with the same people, you share everything. So all my favorite books, my favorite bands, my favorite songs, my favorite movies, favorite TV shows, everything was just saturated in them. I couldn't turn on a song and not think, oh, we listened to this on that really great road trip. I couldn't watch a TV show and remember, oh, we binged this in the garage on Christmas break. And when you're trying to recover from the pain that people have caused you, this is the worst case scenario. I couldn't find happiness in anything. Everything was tainted. I was starting to think I was never gonna find happiness again, that this just rut of trying to enjoy something and then immediately having it ripped away from me by these terrible memories, that was just what it was gonna be forever. That I was just gonna constantly be bombarded with this every single day, and it just made me want to fucking quit and die, because who wants to live like that? But I hopped on YouTube on September 16th and I watched old Call Is Cool videos, specifically the same vinyl video, and heard the same name again, Waterparks. And this time I did check them out. I listened to every song that they uploaded onto their YouTube channel. I watched every music video, and the most amazing thing happened. I found myself singing their lyrics at the top of my lungs, and I found myself dancing around my room to their music. And I was happy, like actually happy, and it was incredible. There was no rush of painful memories because this was something that those people could not touch. This was mine, and it felt so fucking good to have that. I was able to just listen to Austin's lyrics and appreciate everything he was saying. Appreciate how fucking accurate Dizzy is about how shitty your 20s are and how hard it is to overcome all of your insecurities. Appreciate Royal and how hard it hits at how it feels to feel like you're not where you're supposed to be in life, you're not moving fast enough, you're not doing enough. And super appreciate We Need to Talk, and how much it sucks putting all of yourself into a relationship and getting absolutely none of that energy back. And of course, just learning more about the boys themselves, realizing that they are the sweetest, most generous, kind, fun, and funny people you could ever want to be in one of your favorite bands. That is always just such a great bonus when you can fall so in love with a band's music and then also fall in love with who they are as people. So that is how Waterparks gave me my happiness back. They showed me that I can and I will find happiness in other things, and maybe even be able to return to old things and find happiness in those as well. And sure, maybe this is a realization that I would have come to eventually, but when you're in the thick of it and everything is just so dark in your head, it is so impossible to see lights at the end of the tunnel, because in your mind there is no light at the end of the tunnel, there's no light. So I really just found them just in time. And while this video was extremely hard for me to make, evidenced by 20 fucking attempts, I'm so glad that I did. Not only because I finally wanted to explain why this band means as much to me as it does, which was a big part of it, because I think people understand this obsession far less than they understand my 21 Pilots obsession, which is saying something, but also because I know that it will help me down the line. I know that when I have my bad days, and I do, I have plenty of bad days, even now, days where the dark parts of myself tell me that this story isn't worth telling, I did everything in this situation wrong, and I am worth absolutely no one's sympathy and no one's support and no one's love. On those days, I can look back at this and say, this is the example of a good day where you know that the story is valid, it's worth telling, you are worth listening to, you are worth being here. I'm worth living for. This video is just as much for me, if not more, than for anyone else. Waterparks means so much to me. It's not even funny. And hopefully, someday soon, I will be able to tell them that in person. Like I said, I found them just in time.